1812, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, a coin dealer from Frankfurt's Jewish ghetto who built a fortune as court agent to one of Europe's wealthiest princes, faced the problem every successful businessman eventually confronts: how to preserve and expand wealth across generations when most family fortunes dissipate within three. And his solution was so audacious and unprecedented that it created the template for every multinational financial empire since. He sent his 5 sons to establish banks in the 5 most important financial capitals of Europe: Amschel to Frankfurt, Salomon to Vienna, Nathan to London, Karl to Naples, and James to Paris, creating a coordinated banking network that could move capital, information, and influence across borders faster than any government, communicate market intelligence in real time when information traveled at the speed of horses, and most importantly coordinate their activities to ensure that no European government could borrow money, fight a war, or implement financial policy without Rothschild approval. Because if one Rothschild bank declined to finance a government bond issue, the other 4 would follow suit, making the loan impossible. And if the Rothschilds agreed to finance a government, the bond issue would succeed because their coordination guaranteed market liquidity. This is the story of how 5 brothers speaking different languages, operating in different countries under different laws, and serving different monarchs nonetheless functioned as a single coordinated entity that controlled European government finance for 50 years from 1815 to 1865. How their private courier network delivered information 24 to 48 hours, faster than official government channels, giving them trading advantages that generated fortunes from advanced knowledge of political and military events. How they established the principle that banking transcends nationality and family loyalty supersedes patriotism by financing governments on both sides of wars and revolutions, ensuring profit regardless of outcome. How their strategy of marrying first cousins to keep wealth concentrated within the family prevented the dilution that destroyed other dynasties, and why this geographic monopoly combined with coordinated action and superior information created power so complete that Nathan Rothschild in London could make or break the Bank of England's gold reserves with a single decision. James de Rothschild in Paris could determine whether French government bonds traded at premium or discount based on his willingness to support them. And Salomon von Rothschild in Vienna literally had Austrian Emperor Francis I asking permission before implementing monetary policy. The pattern is universal across history. Geographic monopoly plus coordination plus information advantage plus control of critical resources equals power that transcends government. And the Rothschild 5 bank network proved this formula so effectively that modern multinational banks, central bank coordination systems, and too-big-to-fail financial institutions are just mechanized versions of what 5 brothers did with handwritten letters and personal relationships 200 years ago. The foundation began with Mayer Amschel Rothschild, born 1744 in the Frankfurt Judengasse, the Jewish ghetto where 10 families lived in single houses under oppressive restrictions, including curfews, bans on most professions, and prohibitions on living outside the designated quarter. Mayer started as a coin dealer and rare currency expert, leveraging this expertise to become court agent to Prince William of Hesse-Kassel, one of Europe's wealthiest men who made his fortune renting Hessian soldiers to foreign governments, including Britain, during the American Revolution. When Napoleon invaded German territories in 1806, Prince William fled and entrusted his fortune, estimated at £3 million, approximately £300 million today, to Mayer Rothschild to hide and invest. Rothschild used the prince's capital to finance British payments to continental armies fighting Napoleon, charging fees for moving gold and handling transactions, while establishing credibility as a banker who could operate across war zones and transfer funds when governments couldn't. This experience taught Mayer the crucial lesson: international banking during wartime was infinitely more profitable than peacetime commerce, because governments desperately needed capital and would pay premium rates to bankers who could deliver funds across enemy lines. By 1810, Mayer had 5 sons old enough to expand the business, and he implemented the strategy that would make the family name synonymous with international finance. Each son would establish a bank in a different European capital, creating a network that no competitor could match. Nathan, the third son born 1777, went to London in 1805 initially as a textile merchant, but quickly shifted to banking and became the most powerful of the brothers, establishing N.M. Rothschild and Sons, which would dominate British government finance for a century. Salomon, born 1774, established S.M. von Rothschild in Vienna in 1820, financing the Austrian Empire and its vast network of territories. James, the youngest, born 1792, founded de Rothschild Friers in Paris in 1812, and became so influential in French finance that he was called the richest man in France by 1830. Karl, born 1788, went to Naples in 1821, establishing C.M. de Rothschild figly serving the kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Amschel, the eldest, born 1773, inherited the Frankfurt bank Mayer Amschel Rothschild and Sons and coordinated family strategy. By 1825, all 5 banks were established and operating in coordination, a multinational banking network unprecedented in history. The coordination mechanism that made this network unstoppable was daily correspondence between the brothers combined with private courier systems that delivered information faster than government mail. Each brother wrote detailed letters every day reporting political developments, market conditions, government financial needs, and investment opportunities in their respective countries. These letters were carried by private couriers using relay systems that could deliver a message from London to Paris in 18 hours, from London to Vienna in 4 days, 24 to 48 hours faster than official diplomatic mail. This information advantage was worth fortunes, because knowing political or military developments before markets reacted allowed the Rothschilds to buy or sell ahead of price movements. The most famous example was Nathan Rothschild's fortune from the Battle of Waterloo in June 1815, when his courier delivered news of Napoleon's defeat to London 24 hours before the British government's official dispatch arrived. Nathan allegedly bought British government bonds, called consols, at depression prices while the market feared a Napoleon victory. Then when official news confirmed the victory, consols soared in value, and Nathan's profit was estimated at £1 million, approximately £100 million today, made in a single day from information advantage. Whether this exact story is true or embellished, the documented fact is that Rothschild courier networks consistently delivered political and military intelligence faster than governments could, and this information was systematically monetized through bond trading. The government bond monopoly the 5 banks created was the foundation of their power, because European governments emerging from the Napoleonic Wars were desperately indebted and needed to borrow continuously to service existing debts and finance reconstruction. Britain owed £800 million in war debt by 1815, France owed enormous reparations to the victorious Allies, Austria was bankrupt from decades of war, and every European government needed capital to stabilize currencies and rebuild economies. The Rothschilds had 3 advantages no competitor could match. First, they had more capital than any other banking house because they'd profited enormously from war financing and had the Prince of Hesse-Kassel's fortune plus their own accumulated wealth. Second, their 5-bank network meant they could place government bonds across multiple countries simultaneously. A French government bond could be sold in London, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt through Rothschild banks, creating demand no single country bank could generate. Third, their coordination meant they functioned as a cartel. If the 5 Rothschild banks all agreed to underwrite a government bond issue, it would succeed because their combined capital and distribution guaranteed buyers. And if they all declined, the issue would fail because no other banking syndicate had comparable resources. This gave them effective veto power over government borrowing. By 1820, virtually every major European government bond issue required Rothschild participation. Britain's consols were marketed by Nathan in London, French rents by James in Paris, Austrian government bonds by Salomon in Vienna, Neapolitan bonds by Karl in Naples. The Rothschilds charged fees for underwriting bonds, fees for distributing them, and fees for making secondary markets where existing bonds could be traded, profiting at every stage of the government debt cycle. They also influenced government policy, because governments dependent on Rothschild financing had to maintain policies the Rothschilds approved: sound currency, debt service prioritization, and political stability that protected bondholders. The war financing strategy that made them legendary was financing both sides of conflicts, ensuring profit regardless of outcome. During the Crimean War 1853–56, James de Rothschild in Paris arranged loans for France, while Nathan's successor Lionel de Rothschild in London financed Britain, both countries fighting together against Russia, but both borrowing from Rothschild banks. During the Franco-Prussian War 1870–71, different branches of the family financed France and Prussia, literally profiting from both sides of the same war. This wasn't treason or disloyalty, but rational banking. Wars are expensive, governments desperately need capital during wars, and a bank that finances both sides profits regardless of who wins, while also ensuring that neither side becomes so powerful it can dominate the banking system itself. The Rothschilds understood that balanced power among European states was best for banking. If one nation became too dominant, it might nationalize banks or repudiate debts. But if power remained distributed among competing states, all of them needed banking services, and none could threaten the bankers. This strategy of financing competitors against each other to maintain balance became standard practice for international banking and explains why financial institutions often seem to have no patriotic loyalty. Their loyalty is to the system that allows them to profit from all sides. The intermarriage strategy that preserved wealth across generations was marrying first cousins to keep fortunes within the family. Mayer Amschel will explicitly stated that daughters and daughters' husbands should have no part in the business, only sons and sons' descendants, and strongly encouraged his sons to marry within the family. This was systematically implemented. Of 58 marriages by Mayer Amschel's descendants in the direct male line between 1820 and 1970, fully half were between first cousins. Nathan's son Lionel married his cousin Charlotte, daughter of Karl in Naples. James in Paris married his niece Betty, daughter of Salomon in Vienna. This wasn't unusual for European aristocracy, but the Rothschilds practiced it more systematically than most families, and the effect was dramatic concentration of wealth. Instead of fortunes splitting among an expanding number of heirs and in-laws, wealth stayed pooled within a relatively small number of descendants who all shared the family business. By 1850, the 5 Rothschild banks collectively controlled more capital than any other financial institution in Europe, estimated between 300 million and 500 million pounds, equivalent to 40 to 70 billion pounds today. And this capital remained coordinated rather than fragmented, because family members trusted each other more than outsiders, and intermarriage ensured everyone's interests aligned. This is the empire economy, where we decode systems operating in plain sight but rarely explained honestly. Mayer Amschel Rothschild sent his 5 sons to establish banks in Europe's 5 financial capitals: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris, creating between 1812 and 1825 a coordinated multinational banking network that controlled European government finance for 50 years, by functioning as a cartel, where all 5 banks had to approve bond issues, making any government loan impossible without Rothschild participation. Their private courier network delivered political and military intelligence 24 to 48 hours faster than official government channels, generating fortunes from information advantage, most famously when Nathan Rothschild's courier brought news of Waterloo victory 24 hours early, allowing him to buy British consols at depression prices and make an estimated £1 million in a single day, approximately £100 million today. The 5 banks coordinated through daily letters, establishing the first real-time international financial information network, financed both sides of European wars, ensuring profit regardless of outcome, and married first cousins in half of 58 documented marriages between 1820 and 1970 to concentrate wealth rather than dilute it across expanding families. By 1820, no European government could borrow without Rothschild approval. Nathan controlled Bank of England gold reserves. James determined French government bond prices. Salomon advised Austrian emperor on monetary policy. And the family collectively held 300 to 500 million pounds in capital, more than any competitor and equivalent to 40 to 70 billion pounds today, making them more powerful than most governments despite being private bankers with no official authority. The pattern they established, geographic monopoly plus coordination plus information, advantage plus control of critical resources, equals power transcending government, is identical to modern, too-big-to-fail banks where J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo control 45% of U.S. banking assets, coordinate through Federal Reserve meetings and interbank networks, have information advantages through proprietary trading and early access to economic data, and control credit creation, making them more powerful than elected officials who supposedly regulate them. The Rothschild Five-Bank network proved that banking power built on coordination across borders, superior information networks, and control of government debt can dominate nations for generations until either war destroys the system. World War I split the family with English Rothschilds opposing Austrian and German branches, or governments create central banks that nationalize some functions private banks previously controlled. But even then, the private banks that advised on central bank creation, like the Rothschilds advising on Bank of England policy, capture the new institutions and convert public power into private profit. 5 sons, 5 banks, 5 capitals, 50 years of European financial dominance, and a template for multinational banking power that every global financial institution has copied for 2 centuries since.